everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Atlantic CIL podcast. Today, I have one of my favorite people, Lisa Smith. She's the executive director of the Resources for Independent Living, covering, pretty much all of South Jersey. I'm kidding, but she's so awesome. And we're just going to talk about kind of her career, how she got in independent living, and how she really grew relative to what it is today. So, hi, Lisa.
Hi, Donald. Thanks for having me here today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so let's get started right away. So how did you get involved in Centers for Independent Living? How did it start?
So I have been here for 18 years, which feels like a lifetime. I started as a volunteer, actually. My father was a person. He passed away a couple years ago, a person with a very significant disability. And my mom and my dad came to Resources for Independent Living for help, and they worked with the staff there and to get resources and supports and services, and the staff there was great, helped my parents tremendously. I was volunteering with another organization. I've always volunteered my entire life. I love volunteering. At the time, I was working for the airport and was working at the airport during 9/11, and the airport was no longer going to be doing any of the expansions that they were planning, so the agency that I worked for closed down. So my company, we developed, and leased all of the retail space in the airport. So we built the new terminal. So I had some time on my hands, and after my mom was trying to convince me for probably about a year to come volunteer, I finally went and volunteered, and I fell in love with the things that they were doing and the mission of the organization. And after volunteering for about 4 or 5 months, I took the position as grant writer. I was grant writer for about a year until I guess it was probably about February of 2004, 2005. I was promoted to the executive director, and I've been executive director ever since.
Wow. So, and how many regions does RIL serve? Because you guys serve a lot of people.
We do serve a lot of people. So we do have some services, some programs that we cover all 7 southern counties, but our main catchment area is Burlington, Cape May, Cumberland, and Salem counties. We serve probably, like, just for independent living, we probably serve over 3,000 people annually, but services that are outside the scope of that, probably over 10,000 people a year.
Wow. When you first started at RIL, did you serve that many counties, or did it grow over time?
It grew over time. When I first started, it was just Burlington County, and there was about 5 of us, and we were all sitting in the same room together. And we actually almost lost our funding because there were some issues that were happening. And I begged our funders at the time, please don't pull our funding. Give me 6 months to figure it out. If I can't figure it out in 6 months, then take the funding away, because we deserve it to be taken away. So I fixed all the problems and gained the trust back from our community, and slowly started expanding services and adding staff. So we went from 5 staff people in 2004, 2005, and we're almost 50 people strong at this point.
Wow. That's amazing. How old were you when you started, if you don't mind me asking? Was it
27, Donald.
Wow, that's how old I was.
Yeah.
That's how old I was. That's a lot for a young person to take on.
It is. I had no clue what I was getting into. I think people look at our job, Donald, and they think, oh, it's so easy. I could do what they do. It's not easy. Yes. I thought the same thing until I started doing it, and I was like, oh gosh, this is way harder than I thought. With you.
Especially, like you said, starting at the beginning with, when you're just 5 people, like everybody thinks it's just, oh, you just go out and things happen. Like, it's not like that. No, you're constantly balancing things and dealing with people, and it's a lot more difficult. And it always makes me feel better talking to you, because, seeing where you are now and knowing the struggles you went through to get there, it's like people see the end product, but they don't see the journey of it. So what? Go ahead.
In 2012, that's when we took over for another Center for Independent Living that actually was shut down. That's when we took over Cape May, Cumberland, and Salem counties. And it was the same kind of journey that the Atlantic Center had as well. I mean, it was like a repeat of what I had to do in Burlington. So I already had that experience of kind of cleaning up someone else's mess.
Right.
and rebuilding from there and turning everything around. And we definitely, I think we did that. We proved ourselves. So.
Yeah, the nicest thing I heard, I was at a meeting a month ago, and somebody said, it's so nice to have a responsive center for independent living in Atlantic County. And it was just so cool to hear that. Just, somebody who
makes
had
your
been
heart
around
happy.
say that. Yeah. So how did you grow? Like, what was the process like? You started with the 5 core services, of course, and then
it was 4 then.
Oh, wow.
Was added a couple of years ago of transition. So it was the 4 core services. We really concentrated on doing what we already had and doing it well. At that time, we had a 4-year grant through Centers for Medicaid and Medicare that was in partnership with the state of New Jersey for nursing home transition and diversion. And that's the grant that I started out on. So that's kind of my passion, is helping people, stay out of nursing homes and transition out of them. So because we had done that with my own father, we had taken him out of a nursing home and we rehabbed him ourselves at home and provided all that care to him. So, I've lived in a lot of different roles as a caretaker. Both of my children have disabilities. I myself is a person with a disability, so living that, I really think you get the mantra and what it is that Centers for Independent Living embody. And, we started out small. We did a lot of stuff for free to gain the trust back for the community. I sat on every advisory board from here to Kingdom Come, just to make those connections and rebuild trust. And then we started going off after really small grants and nailed those, and then went after medium-sized grants and nailed those. And then we started going after big stuff. And, we continue to nail those. I mean, how we do things is very important to us. I believe very strongly in the team approach. I don't make decisions by myself. I have a great team that backs me up. I believe very strongly from promoting within, and we make decisions together. I have a vision for what I want real resources to be, and thankfully I have a great team that follows my crazy and supports me, and on all the ideas that I have, and they kind of cringe when I say I have a new idea. Because there's always something happening or coming down the pike.
Does your team sleep? Because I could imagine with you, because you always have something going. One time, one of my center's favorite stories about you is you're running all your centers, you're running for committee woman at one point, and you're also an Uber and a Lyft driver. And we were told this at the directors meeting, and I'm like, I can't with her energy. I don't know how she does all this stuff.
I do not like to be bored. I like to stay busy. Keeps my mind busy. I love making lists. There's some satisfaction in crossing something off the list. We're launching a whole slew of new services that are very unique to Centers for Independent Living. Nobody has done this in New Jersey as of yet. I've spent a lot of time researching this and took a trip across the country visiting other Centers for Independent Living and other providers who are doing amazing work. I know that there's great organizations out there doing some great things. So we just started a project with all of our supervisors and managers and those that are getting ready to be promoted into those positions, where we go and we visit other centers that not just necessarily Centers for Independent Living, but organizations that are doing great work in the community, because, we certainly don't do everything. We do a lot, but we don't do everything, and I want to see the things that they're doing and how we can better connect with them and create that no wrong door entry point for things. So we do have a lot of pretty neat stuff coming down the pike.
Yeah, talk about that a little bit from what you're comfortable discussing. I know you're expanding services into areas that a lot of souls don't go to, because you're in a position now where you can.
It took 18 years to get here. This was not this kind of growth, and it does not happen overnight. We push very hard. My staff, they do sleep, but they're just as driven as I am. And I always tell them, whatever energy you bring to me, I will bring that back to you. So you give me 150%, I'm giving 150% back to you. So, they believe very strongly, just like I do, in what we do. So, some of the unique things that we do, like we do adult protective services in both Cumberland and Burlington counties, which is kind of unique to Centers for Independent Living. I know that sometimes people have mixed feelings about that because, we always believe in the least restrictive environment, but this population, it is truly the most vulnerable of all of people with disabilities. These are people who cannot speak for themselves, who are in a very bad situation, who are being abused, neglected, exploited, who are self-neglecting and really don't have any resources available to them. So, we spend a lot of time getting people safe. And I love going in the field. It's one of my favorite programs to do. And I'm out in the field a couple days a week, usually with the team. I'm in court a lot for those cases. So I absolutely love that program. We just launched adult day programming, which is kind of unique for Centers for Independent Living as well. But we have a different take and spin on it because we believe that everybody has the ability to learn, no matter how severe the disability is. We don't believe in warehousing people and having people just sitting in a room and staring at a wall all day. I don't care, what your ability is. We're going to figure it out. You're going to change classes just like you are in college, depending on the individual's ability. Most classes are half an hour to 45 minutes, depending on their level of disability. Some classes, because that's as long as they can sit, they're 15-minute length classes, and they move from class to class. And it could be an educational, could be recreational, it could be physical. It's part of our overall health and wellness program. So, we really strive to make sure that there is inclusion in our programming and that everybody is learning something. So that is pretty new to us. And I don't believe there's any other centers that are doing that as it stands right now. We are getting ready to submit our policies and procedures to the state of New Jersey because we are going to become a mental health treatment facility, I guess you could say. So we will be providing counseling, both individual and group counseling. We will do medication management because that's a requirement for the state of New Jersey, that if you're doing counseling, you have to provide the medication component. So we are happy that we just finally got a doctor. We have a nurse practitioner. We have all of our social workers lined up. So we are ready to go. And that's a pretty exciting thing for us. Coming down the pike too is home health with OT-PT speech. We already do speech therapy now, but this will be expanded. Skilled nursing, and from that we're just a little bit further down the road, we'll be doing hospice care services as well. So, we're doing some unique things. We just purchased 6 new vehicles, buses, to be able to provide our own in-house transportation. So transportation is something that we are working on expanding. We just bought another building in Salem City. Hopefully we will go to settlement on that building the end of September. So that will be the launch of our new health and wellness program that incorporates all the domains: nutrition, mental health, holistic, because when an individual comes and needs help, no matter what their disability is, it covers that whole domain. So if you take a person, let's say, that has MS, it affects them physically, it affects them mentally, it affects their family, it affects them financially. There's so many different aspects to the disability, any disability, that's the piece that's being missed and not being addressed. So when people come in, they will meet immediately with an intake person. They will schedule appointments with you while you are there, either in-house with our team if it's a service that we provide, or we will make that connection for that provider out in the community for you and make that appointment for you with you to make sure that you have services and supports that are set up. So when you meet with us, you will be seen across all of those domains. You'll be seen across mental health, home health, if that's appropriate, whatever in-house programs that we have that you may qualify for. You'll see nutrition, you will see everybody. We will also be inviting other providers that serve our community to be able to come and provide services to our joint individuals that we serve for free. We will give them space in our building so that they can meet with individuals, because at the end of the day, it's about serving the person and serving the people that support our individual. We want to work smarter, not harder, and partnering with other agencies and bringing the great things that they're doing to our individuals. I think that is just how nonprofits should be working. Not everybody has the same capacity. In some counties, it's very hard, even if you do have a presence, it's very hard for them to reach certain parts of the community. And, Donald, you probably know that firsthand because there's some very rural parts of Atlantic County
Yes.
that are hard to reach. And when you're looking at this will kick off in our Cumberland and Salem County offices first, and it'll roll out to the other counties. There are very rural parts, and there's a lot of shared services. And the same thing works with Atlantic and Cape May County, where they might have a presence in Atlantic, but not have it in Cape May. Well, the same thing works in Cumberland. They have a presence in Cumberland, but not a presence in Salem County. So if we have space for them, you have the ability to come meet with clients anytime you want. And we'll have a rotating schedule for providers like DVRS and Big Brother, Big Sister. We are going to be working on creating a program for babies and really little guys for childcare, because there are no childcare services for individuals anywhere near down there for kids with significant disabilities. So this, hopefully, we're looking at expanding the building and going up and building 3 to 4 floors on this building, but that's all coming down the pike. We're still in the infant phases of that. We haven't gone to settlement on the building, but that's the goal. And we're going to replicate that model throughout all of our counties.
That's awesome. I mean, I'm exhausted just at the end of this talking about it. But this is what cells can really become. Yeah. And what I really look to in the future, and, I always talk in this podcast because we've had other directors on how your cells are different depending on how long they've been around, what resources they have, what community they're in. All these things come into a factor. Like we're in Atlantic County, a small cell, and we just started. So we're focusing on our core services, doing our access link, growing. We just became a DDD provider, service provider. We just became a DOL service provider. So we're doing those beginning steps that you and I always talk about. Concentrate on what you do, start out small, then it'll grow from there. So I'm just really excited about, where our center could be in 10 years. And that's the stuff I think is really important. What do you think makes CILs different than other nonprofits or other organizations that serve people with disabilities? What do you think makes us different?
That's a great question. I mean, I think the obvious answer is the whole 51% of our staff and our board have to be people with disabilities. So most other organizations do not work that way. So I think that in itself and our core philosophies, there's a lot of people out there doing information referral, peer support, advocacy. Those are all things that happen at a lot of agencies that work with our population of people. But what makes us a little bit different is that it is people with disabilities who are helping to provide that service. We do promote that philosophy from within. So I do definitely think that makes us a little bit different in how we approach our services. I mean, while it very much is, we're a large organization, but we're still grassroots at the core. We still believe in all of those amazing things that make a center for independent living a center for independent living. I love the camaraderie that we have statewide with all of the center directors. We have a great network of really amazing, bright, talented people who bring so much to the table. And I'm thankful that, I know that I could pick up the phone and call them at any time and have that support system from everyone. And I don't think that other organizations necessarily have that on the level that we have that.
And I also think what you're saying is so important about how it's people with disabilities in the decision-making and service delivery roles. I remember when I first got asked to join the board of my center before I became director, I was a little hesitant at first when I was like, oh, is it going to be one of those disability organizations where you never see the people with the disabilities?
Yeah.
Where like it's all people talking about people with disabilities without the actual people with disabilities.
Making decisions about them for them.
Yes. But when I read the philosophy, I'm like, okay, this is my jam. This is stuff I believe in too. Personal responsibility, self-determination, advocacy, like all that stuff about people with disabilities being in control and being in the decision-making process. What are some of the challenges, even though you're such a big organization of some of the success, what are still some of the challenges that you find in doing your job in serving people with disabilities?
That's a great question. There's always barriers out there. I mean, just the education factor alone, making sure that people understand what we do and what we don't do, because people often misinterpret what our abilities are and our role and our function is. So explaining that to people and trying to reduce that overall frustration that people have. A lot of times, especially with our name, Resources for Independent Living, people think that we're housing, and we're not. We have housing lists that we can give you of,
Yes.
make that connection for you, but we don't do housing. It's the one service that a Center for Independent Living cannot do. So I think that there's some frustration there with just community members when they find us. And, as long as we've all been in business, still shocking to me that people don't know that we exist and that we do what we do. And I think it's because we serve such a broad scope of, we serve everybody, all ages, all disabilities, birth to earth. It doesn't matter how minute or severe your disability is. If you're a person with a disability, it's really good enough for us. I think that philosophy, because we serve so many, you'd think that more people would know we exist. And it always kind of makes me chuckle that when we find somebody who says, I didn't even know that you were there. This is so great. How come more people don't know about you? I don't know.
We just had that happen the other day. And you're right. I love Ed Roberts, our founder, but I think the branding was not the specialty of the independent living movement.
I think you're right.
Independent living conveys housing to me. So
Yeah.
I understand why there's confusion. But really still is our resource support and advocacy centers at their core.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing at their core. But we get calls all the time. When can I have somebody who needs to move in? I'm like, well, they're not moving in this office.
We get those calls every day too. Like, what units do you have available? Well, there's no unit here. It's not happening. It's hard to, when people call us and we don't have the resource available for them. And sometimes it just doesn't exist, for what the individual needs. Housing is probably the most challenging thing. And that's just not here in New Jersey. That's across the country, trying to find affordable, accessible housing. When they say affordable, they have their ranges for incomes, but most of the people that we work with, they're nowhere near those ranges to be able, and the waiting lists are god awful long. So, so it's difficult that you can't fix the person's issue that they're having or help them fix it, because, that's what we like to do. We like to be able to match the need with, the solution for the problem and make that marriage together.
Yeah, because still staff, we're all problem solvers. Like that's how my team's wired. So like when we get that call about housing, people get frustrated because it's not and it's usually somebody in a crisis who needs the housing right now. And we know the chances that you're not getting that housing, even if you got on every wait list in New Jersey, you're going to have to wait 3 years. I always tell people the best time to get on a wait list is when you have housing.
Yes, that is the best time to get on the wait list. We had somebody who called us from a apartment complex yesterday. There was an elderly woman who was getting evicted, but she was getting evicted the next day, which that, we're miracle workers, and I think we all do a great job, but even we can't work that fast to make housing appear miraculously overnight. And that's hard too, because when you get evicted, those previous evictions, they, hold them against you. So it makes it even more challenging. And I think that our staffs, we keep working to finding a solution, looking on Craigslist or Facebook and trying to find people who are renting rooms and seeing if we can do some kind of blended, I have this person over here who has a house and has an available room, and this person who needs something. So let's make a marriage together and make that happen.
Yes. We're always trying to think of creative ways to get people what they need. But I would encourage people also who are looking for things to get involved in. Like this is where you're still maybe can't help with the resources right away, but we need some advocacy in this area because the truth is there's not enough housing because they don't build enough housing. Because the truth is when people say everybody wants affordable housing, just not in their area. Like
not in their backyard.
Put them over there. So, which keeps the cost of housing up. So, when they have these discussions at your city council meeting or your freeholder meeting, like you need to be at those discussions and saying to counteract the people who say, not in my backyard, because if people see there's a constituency out there,
Look, if
then
you're not at the table, they're going to eat without you and they're going to make those decisions without you. So if you're not there to voice your opinion, then it never gets heard.
Right. What's that saying? If you're not at the table, you're on the menu. Like,
I like that. I think that's
so,
the challenge too, Donald, because beyond the core services, each center has its own flair, and that really revolves around the executive director and the director's passions. Because when you look at the difference between, like, let's say us and HIP Hudson or HIP Bergen, they have a strong strong programming when it comes to people who are blind and low vision, because that was the area that the director at the time was very, it was a passion for her. So I think that's you could go from our center, and we cover the county surrounding, like CIL of South Jersey, and they've got a unique program, but we don't do it at our center because it's unique to them and what the needs are for that community. So sometimes they'll say, hey, I got this great thing from my Center for Independent Living. I know, Donald, when you guys were had some COVID dollars and you were giving out, doing some technology-based stuff, we were getting calls left and right, and we, of course, weren't doing that. And there was that, well, how come you guys aren't doing that? So it's
always, yeah, I get that. That's revenge, because I get that from you too. Well, I get this, but that's why I always do the disclaimer. I'm always like, I'm going to refer you to your CIL, but just so you know, that might be a little different than us, and which and that's the strength of CILs, but also it can get confusing. Like, it's like you go to McDonald's, you know what you're getting. With Centers for Independent Living, you don't necessarily know what you're getting. How would you tell people, because you got involved in this crazy world, how would you tell people who are interested, because I get this question all the time too, in helping people with disabilities and disability services, how should they get involved? Because you kind of started at the ground level.
I did. I think I got very lucky. It kind of fell into my lap, and I worked very hard to get where I'm at and proved myself time and time again. And that takes a lot of hard work and dedication over years. If you're looking to get into the disability field, certainly there's a shortage of social workers. I think calling your area Center for Independent Living, it's a little harder right now because of COVID. COVID has changed, volunteerism, I think, everywhere at this point. Where we had, prior to COVID, we had more people we would allow more people to come in and volunteer. And for us, we go by the Cali Index, which changes week to week. Last week we were code red, where everybody was masked back up again and had to put our, extra protocols in place. And this week we're back down at yellow. So it changes from week to week. So, having volunteers in sometimes can be difficult, depending on what role and what function they're doing. But certainly Centers for Independent Living always need help with fundraising, and I know for the most part, a lot of us are always looking for people to join our board. That's a great place. And there's also the SILC, the Statewide Independent Living Council, and they're always looking for people with disabilities to join, and their non-disabled peers as well.
That's a great point. I always tell people the best way to get involved is to get involved. Like, it's really not that complicated. Just show up to these meetings. Like, this SILC meeting is a public meeting. You have the right to be there during the public approach, and you can just show up the first couple of weeks and just listen. And then you start offering your ideas, and people appreciate it, because we're all busy, and people appreciate, there's a passionate person in the disability world who wants to get involved. Like, they find stuff for you to do. So
that's true. They always do find. I always make sure that I tell my team there is no idea that's too big or too small. I always want to hear what their ideas are. I don't have all the ideas. I don't have all the answers. I'm only as good as the team that supports me. And I always encourage them. I want to hear what you have to say. I want feedback from our team. I think that that's really important, to be a person who's willing to listen to the people. If you brought somebody on your team, you brought them on for a reason.
I say sometimes, if I'm the smartest guy in this room, I need to recalculate who's around me. Because I'm like, I like good ideas and smart people and people who challenge me and people who make me think.
Agreed.
And I don't have a problem being like, I was wrong about that. Let's readjust. You're right. I like that type of give and take. I don't need the whole dictator model of like what I say goes and stuff like that. And I just,
Yeah,
that backfires.
I think
Uh,
that's what makes us successful, Donald. The fact that we kind of work as a democracy.
yes.
I have a team of 12 managers that I depend on to help me run, over 30 programs agency wide. So, they're the brains. They're the my little worker bees that make magic happen. They make me look good, and I'm so appreciative for them.
Yes, yes. Do you have anybody who's been with you since the beginning of Lisa to now? Do you have
Yep.
anybody who stayed with you the whole
Yeah,
time?
actually, a lot of our people, we really don't have a high turnover rate. I really try to take really good care of my team because again, if I take care of them, they take care of me. So Joe Zaski is right behind me. He was the first person I hired as a SIL director. 1 month into my SIL directorship, I hired him. So he's been with me for 17 years. We've had quite a few people who've retired over the last couple of years. So who were with me for 14, 15 years when they retired. I have a lot of people who are at their 10-year mark. Right now, Jamie, who we just promoted to associate director, which is a new role for us here. She's been with me for 10 years. Ashley, who manages my BDD department for supports coordination, she's been with me for 10 years. So I have a lot of people who've been with me for a long time. We really don't have a high turnover rate. I feel like we're always hiring. I think we have like 6 or 7 positions open right now, but people tend to kind of stay with us. So I love that.
Yes,
That we
I
create a
find that.
family.
I find that with us too, that we have a lot of the people I've been with because sales are such a journey, especially when you're growing, you get connected with each other because you've been doing this together, you've been building this together. So, it's addicting in a way because you're
Yes, it
like, all
is.
right, what's our next thing we're gonna conquer? And I know you just keep conquering things.
I get bored easily and I'm constantly making plans. And I think that that's what a Center for Independent Living we're meant to do. We're not meant to stay stagnant. You have a program now, it could end tomorrow, and I don't want to lose any of my amazing team people. So I'm always hustling to figure out what's the next new program, what's the new thing that we're going to do, and how am I going to maintain what we're at. That's like the double-edged sword of when you get bigger is you have to maintain all that. It's great that you got it, but I got to maintain it too.
Yes, that you are.
To make
Yes,
sure that 50 people don't lose their jobs. So it's a big responsibility to make
yeah,
sure.
I'm glad you got an associate director now, Lisa. It's
I
time for
did.
you to get it.
I agree. I actually promote. We have a clinical director now, and we have an associate director now. So we've kind of broken out programming. We just promoted a slew of managers and supervisors and people into management roles. And like I said, I prefer to promote from within. I prefer to give those individuals who've worked for it that opportunity. So most of our people have amazing stories. Like our associate director, she started off as a temporary part-time employee working on a youth contract 10 years ago. And it was only supposed to be for like 3 or 4 months. It was a DEI contract with DVRS. And after the 3 months was done, I could not bear the thought of her leaving because she was so amazing and so talented. And I figured out a way to keep her, and she went from part-time to full-time, and then she became a supervisor, and then she worked her way up to manager and was managing multiple programs. Then she was managing multiple buildings, and that was 10 years ago, and now she's associate director.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
So
Joe's done amazing things too.
Joe is pretty amazing. I actually think he has the sweetest deal of all of us. We have a contract with Cornell University. We answer the national ADA hotline for New York, New Jersey, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. And up until COVID, he traveled all over the country and was always in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. He doesn't really, since COVID, he's not really traveled that much, but it's a little wasted on him. He hates the beach, but he has a pretty sweet gig. He started with us working on a youth contract, and he said to me one day, I was picking him up from a school, and he said, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do something different. I said, Joe, what do you want to do? He said, I want to teach about the ADA. I want to educate people. I want to be in a more facilitator role and things like that. So I created a partnership with Cornell and expanded that role for Joe. And, my team teases me that they're going to make me a t-shirt that says, just tell me what you want to do, because I say that to them a lot. Just tell me what you want to do. I'm about making dreams happen. So tell me what you're interested in and what your goals are. And I want to plug the right people in the right positions where they have that passion for whatever that program is, or that population, because that's where you really see people shine. So that's what I'm good at. I'm good at creating that component and getting the right people into the right spot.
Yes, you are. You're good at filling the voids. You do.
Yeah.
Nobody fills it. So we'll go back to, and we'll wrap up in a little bit. But I did want to ask, like, how is, you talking about a little bit, but when did you start your day programs? How's that going? How is that? Is it everything you wanted?
It's we definitely are tweaking things. We started day programming a few months ago, so it's still a fairly new service for us, and we're still filling all of our slots for the day program. We're getting pretty full in Cumberland. We had to add additional space in the Cumberland. So we have 2 buildings now in Cumberland. We have 2 buildings in our Pennsville location. We own both of those locations. And then, of course, we're purchasing the building in Salem City. But, we worked very hard on that. The policies and procedures, it was tough. I have to say it was pretty grueling. We had a great consultant that we worked with who helped us develop those policies and procedures over, the last 2 years with the COVID, everything that happened with COVID. It changed our focus a little bit and made us really dig down and look at where are the gaps in our community and what is really lacking. And with COVID, a lot of day programs closed and never opened back up again. Or they're working on very reduced capacity. So we saw that not only as an opportunity, but a need for us. And we want to do it the right way. We want to do it with that Center for Independent Living flair that we put on stuff where there's choice. So many times people do not ask people with disabilities, what do you want? What do you want to do? So there's choice. You get to choose what programming you want. And the individuals that we serve, they drive the classes. We ask them constantly, what are you interested in? What do you like to do? What do you want to learn about? We will create tailored lessons around their likes, what they want to do. We'll create classes all about that. We have a dog training yard in our Pennsville location and a dog grooming tub, because we had people who said, I want to work with dogs. I want to learn how to do this stuff. So we created it. Lately, we've had some individuals that we're working with that have, a different kind of need where they're a little bit more involved. They need a one-to-one, pica and other special needs that individuals have that they're not able to speak. So, recently I had to create a whole different room and structure, which I did over the last week. We've been putting furniture together. So, we have a young man that we work with in our Pennsville location. And I was there yesterday putting a table together, and the drill was bothering him, the noise, and he was getting very verbal and was flapping, and it was upsetting him. So instead of stopping what I was doing, waiting until he left, or redirecting him someplace else, I asked him if he wanted to come help me, because nobody ever asks people with disabilities, especially somebody with a significant disability. He was super, super stoked. Came over, he screwed all the screws in for the legs for the tables, and he put all the tables together for me. I helped him, but he was super excited because nobody's ever asked him to do that before. And I think that that's, kind of the difference. So we're constantly tweaking our program and the classes and trying to make it fit for the individuals we're serving and try to make it as individualized as possible. And I think that that's the Center for Independent Living spark and flair that we have on stuff.
Yeah, and well, definitely, that's a great story to end with, because I think it really crystallizes what Centers for Independent Living are about, like communicating that high expectation and that choice. Like, actually, you can be a part of this. Like, it may be different, but like, you can be a part of this instead of being like, taking the easy way. The easy way would have been, like you said, I'll just wait till he leaves, or I'll just do this later.
That was the easy thing, Donald, but doing what's easy is not always what's right, right. And then I had a couple other young men that were sitting around and they were watching him. I'm like, you guys want to put furniture together too? So next thing you know, we had 4 or 5 young men, all with very significant disabilities, who don't often get asked if they want to participate in things like that. They were putting furniture together. They cook every week. A lot of times people with disabilities, they're not even allowed in the kitchen like that.
Right.
Putting butcher knives in their hands and teaching them to chop up stuff and use the oven and the stove because they want to learn how to do these things. And they're excited when people actually offer them choice. So I think that's the takeaway for Centers for Independent Living. It's about choices and what you want from your life, and that shouldn't be ignored just because you're a person with a disability.
Right. Like if somebody said to you, no, I don't want to put together that table, you've been like, okay. But, giving them that option, a lot of people, they've just never been asked. And when you do that, I know you get the calls too when people saying, I have a loved one with a disability and they've never, they're not motivated or any of that stuff and they're getting older. And I'm always like, well, have you asked them? Have you encouraged them? Because if all you communicate is kitchen dangerous, putting table together dangerous, like don't be shocked when they're not, when they're not doing anything because you told them that to stay safe, don't try anything that might challenge you.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important. Thank you so much, Lisa, for doing this. This has been so cool. It's been a learning experience for me, and maybe
thanks for having me.
18 years from now, I'll be opening my day program.
Listen, I hope that's going to be sooner than 18 years. And you need my help. You know where to find me. And I can't wait to see all the amazing things that you guys accomplish. You're doing great, amazing work there in Atlantic County. And I'm so happy that, you're down here and that we're neighbors. And I love being able to refer people over.
Oh, Lisa, that made my day.
You guys are doing a great job. You're doing a great job.
That made my day. And
glad I could help.
Thank you so much. Bye, Lisa.
Bye. Thank you.